it's as simple as that. If you are lucky enough to find your calling, no effort is perceived as effort. And I wish to everyone in this world to find their calling, because I think we are very often stuck with someone else's dreams, someone else's ambitions, or we think that something will make us happy, but actually it doesn't. I really hope that my example will pave a way for some people who might have been doubting but didn't have as much courage as I happened to have.
You're listening to the Work in Progress podcast, and we are your hosts, Dana and Angela. We believe your work and career should evolve with you, and it is therefore always a work in progress. In this podcast, you will hear stories of people who turn their careers from something that no longer serves them into something that complement who they are and their life goals. The way I like to think about it is that their careers are growing and stretching just like they are. Our goal is to inspire you to get out there and to make the changes you want for yourself and your future self. Let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the Work in Progress podcast. Today we're talking to Maria, and Maria is a ballet dancer turned conductor. In 2019, she worked as a conductor in residence with the National Ballet of Canada, and she has many more exciting opportunities coming up for her in the near future. So welcome, Maria. Thank you for joining us today. And I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of introduction to yourself, and we'll take it from there. And feel free to talk about anything you like. It doesn't have to be just restricted to careers. You can talk about, whatever you want to talk about. So all topics are welcome, and then we can go from there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Seletskaja. I am 36 years old, Estonian born, ex-ballet dancer, and currently orchestra conductor. I'm a single mother to a 6-year-old son. So that makes my life even more interesting. To begin with, I was born in Soviet Union, and I was raised in a strict way. It was a common thing back then in time, and my upbringing included not just a regular education path, but my parents tried to engage me in as many activities as possible, which was not so uncommon in general. Soviet Union was allowing always to have extracurriculum activities. So apart from attending school, I was going to music school. I did rhythmic gymnastics. I was studying English. I was dancing. So my days were basically filled from the morning till the evening. But at the age of 9, by chance, I was not really dreaming to become a dancer. But it happened by chance that I told my mother that I will be going to do the exams to enter the ballet school. And luck was probably on my side. I was accepted with certain precautionary words from teachers who said I was lacking certain physical abilities, some of which could have been trained and developed during the years of education, but some not. But I was determined to prove to everyone that I would make it work for myself. And so the years of struggle, they started. So I have been studying ballet for 9 years. So this is normally the time that it takes to become a professional ballet dancer. Mm-hmm. So you enter the ballet school at the age of between 9 and 11 traditionally, and then you sort of go through the middle and high school years there, and then you graduate as a professional ballet dancer, and you can start working, which is I think very uncommon for any other area of activity, because ballet dancers, they start working at the age of 17, 18, 19. This is the time when vast majority of people actually start going to college or university. So this is the difference. But also the problem with ballet is that the career span is very short. We normally retire at the age of 40. And I would say that this is probably the age where, as we call them, normal people actually get their feet under them in their professions. They have not only graduated and done their grads, postgrads, doctorates, and PhDs, but they have also gained certain experience in their working field. By this time, we are considered pensioned people, and most of the dancers, they are. Every dancer is faced with a absolutely dreadful decision what to do in a life after ballet. And some of dancers are actually not that lucky, and they really fall deep down, because to give a brief overview, you start dancing probably at the age of 4 normally. You start attending dance classes and stuff. In America, in States, I know people do step, and they do all kinds of show dancing as well. And it's time consuming, it's energy and soul consuming. So when you actually start doing professional education, you don't have anything but ballet. You obviously have your mathematics and geography and languages and literature. Obviously, you study. We are not uneducated people, but we are faced with a much greater workload, because apart from following the normal national curriculum, we have a whole bunch of profession-related subjects, and plus the dance-related subjects, like ballet and partnering dance and character dance and historical dance, all kinds of gyms and stuff, all kinds of cross-training, and plus, music history, ballet history, art history, all kinds of things, which one needs to know in order to be able to go on stage and depict certain era or epoch or certain historical personage. So it's all the part of the package. So you end up going to school from 8 in the morning till sometimes 9 in the evening.
Wow.
Yes. And if you are when you are 16, 17, you often end up also performing together with the National Ballet as a part of their corps de ballet. So sometimes, your days go till 10, 11 when the last act of the ballet finishes. So this is what it is. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are not passionate about it, there's no way you are going to survive it. So of course it's very beautiful, because I would say that most of the dancers would probably tell you that they are living their dream, although it's very painful and difficult and demanding profession. It's painful both mentally and physically. But it was a conscious choice of everyone. It's a passion and obsession in some cases. So it is very hard to see outside the bubble. So, and then, needless to say, it is very hard to find something which will be equally engaging in the life after. So some dancers, they maybe go into teaching, but there are not so many teachers needed. So, people need to look for the future occupation. So I was lucky, because I have had certain moments during my career, some injuries and some moments when I was forced to stop. So I had time to think, time to reflect, time to doubt, maybe. And I was lucky enough to encounter certain people who would simply give me ideas. And since I play piano since I'm 4.5, so I started piano approximately at the same time as I started dancing, but much earlier than I went to ballet school. So I kept playing piano throughout my ballet training and throughout my ballet career as well. So I had and second passion in my life, something which was in this inseparable part of my life. And some people just actually suggested, they said, oh, why don't you contemplate about becoming a conductor for ballet? Because you have certain expertise in both ballet and music. You could study music more deeply, and then you could merge two worlds together. Because on a side note, there's orchestra conducting as such. It's something what people who go to concerts see. Conductor comes and leads an orchestra, and he is sort of free to do whatever he wants with any musical piece. He can interpret it in the ways he wants, obey the tradition, or maybe make a breakthrough in another direction. Meanwhile, ballet, because it involves a lot of movement, and movement carved to fit the musical frame. This dance, the choreographic text which dancers execute, has to fit the music. So music is restricted, and music has, in ideal world, music has to help dancers perform the best. I would say, if to make a comparison, if you are a runner at Olympics, and if wind blows in your back, you're more likely to reach your gold medal faster. So music can help you if music is played in a better way. If it starts exactly at the launching point of a jump of a dancer, or if the certain accent, a loud music catches a dancer in the air when it needs to, dancers can perform better. Or sometimes, if music starts too early, or if music is too fast, what happens? Dancer starts his solo, her solo, and ends up chasing the music all the time, wasting physical resources, and dancing, of course, worse. But ballet, classical ballet, it looks effortless, it looks very easy, but it's the hardest physical activity I have ever been engaged in. It's hard. So for me, when I thought, maybe I could conduct for ballet, I said, but why not? Maybe I could finally help dancers. Not finally, I cannot say finally. There are many fine ballet conductors, but of course I'm the only one right now. And I spoke with several people who are in the field, and they said they have never really heard of a ballet dancer turned conductor. I have heard of one man years ago, decades ago, in Soviet Union, but right now there's none. So it gives me, of course, certain advantage, because when ballet companies, ballet directors, they hear about an ex-dancer who is able to lead an orchestra, they are definitely interested. So I know that I'll be able to hopefully earn my bread, and not only just bread, but the butter to eat as well in the future. So I see that some directors, some companies, they are, of course, a bit cautious. They're interested, but they are waiting for me to gain more experience. Fair enough, I understand it. But I think in a few years' time, when I will have earned experience and hopefully a good name, I think I will have more than enough jobs to do. So, and then another little thing is that among conductors, among musicians, ballet music is considered a second sort, lower sort of music, and not many conductors are actually willing to become a conductor specifically for ballet. If to conduct theater music, then they prefer to conduct an opera, because it's considered to be more chic, I would say, of a higher rank. Of course, every conductor dreams to go on a stage of Carnegie Hall, or Berliner Philharmonie. There are majestic, amazing concert halls, but not everyone gets there. And sometimes I think, would be lovely, of course, but in general, what I want is just to be able to stand in front of an orchestra and conduct music, a piece of music, no matter what. It just makes me happy. So yeah, this was, I guess, my long introduction.
Thank you. Thank you for the long introduction. I can really hear your passion and how much story is behind, your experiences. And I really had a lot of this is new information for me because I've never really spoken with a conductor before. So I really appreciate all the information. And so I was reading up a little bit about conducting before I talked to you, and I found that there's an interesting kind of comparison. So what I read, or what the way I understood it, is that conductor is sort of also like a musician, and the orchestra that they are conducting is their instrument, and
Right.
It gives them, and I think it's really amazing that you actually do get, like you said, you get a lot of freedom to interpret. You can choose to follow the traditional way of presenting a piece, or you can interpret this piece in your own different way, in your own individual way. And I think that I wonder how that feels like compared to when you're a ballet dancer. Does this feel like you have more freedom, or was ballet the same, but I just didn't know about that?
Actually, it's a very good question that you ask. Wow. It's in a weird way now that I think it's in a weird way very similar. Because look, if you're a musician, you have a score, in my case, an orchestra score, where every single note that is being played by an orchestra is written, is there. So you have a canvas. You have a canvas ready to be drawn on. So you just need to decipher the thought of composer and try to understand what was he trying to convey with what he had put on the paper. And as a dancer, you also learn steps. It's a very strict sequence of steps, which is put on the music very precisely. It's we count the music very differently than musicians, because it's just a different way of perceiving music. But if this certain step has to be executed on 3, it has to be on 3 and not on 3 and not on N3 and not on 2, because especially if you have to dance together with someone, it has to look the same. So there are strict rules. And then also there's such a thing as keeping the choreographer's thought intact. So if you look at the ballet Swan Lake, one of them is the most famous ballet, which has been created 140 years ago. Lots of the original choreographic text has vanished, because back in time there was no video, there was no way of writing things down. There have been several attempts to notate it, but it's not like a mathematical formula where you write x plus epsilon equals 2 times AC. It's not that. But right now, in these days, in current times, a very strict way of very precise way of notating a choreographical language has been developed. It has 5 lines, just like a musical notation. If I'm a complete profane, I don't know exactly, but if I'm not mistaken, 1 line goes for head, then there's a line for arms, line for legs, I think, and line for body. So the choreographic language can be written down with utmost precision. It's spectacular. And then there are these specialists, very often ex-dancers themselves, who have studied, if I'm not mistaken, 4 years. It's a long study. And they are able to look at the video, or they are present during rehearsals, during creation, when choreographer creates. They just sit there and they write this paper, which looks like Talmud. It looks like some sort of hieroglyphs. You don't understand anything. But then when the work is being recreated 5 years later or 10 years later on the other side of the globe, it's going to be recreated in exact way how it was created. So this is an advantage. So now going back to the music, of course, you learn the steps or you learn your notes, but then it's always the same. If there are two pianists playing the same piano piece, notes are the same. Tempi are the same. They both had the same score, but the piece sounds different. Yeah. And if there are two dancers who are executing the principal role, let's say in Swan Lake, the Odette and Odile, they execute the same steps. They execute steps on the same moment in music and stuff, but the role breathes in a different way. So this is where we come to the freedom. You are in some way restricted because you have to follow what has been written down by creators, but then your individuality comes into play. And even if you want to strictly copy someone, be it a conductor, if I want to conduct the piece the way some idol of mine conducts, or if I want to dance the way some idol of mine danced, it will never work because you have different physicality, you have different way of breathing, different way of thinking, different mimic, different everything. So yeah, the steps will be recognizable, so the canvas will be the same, but the little shades will always be different.
So I understand that being a conductor, you need to do a lot of studying in terms of music. And have you always been doing that since you were little when you were a ballet dancer?
Yes, as much as I remember myself, I always had piano. It was always there. I don't remember a time when I was not able to play piano. I know that I started at the age of 4.5, so I don't remember the process of learning it. I just sort of always could play it. And there was a time when I was contemplating stopping dancing because you remember how I was describing how much effort you need to put during your studying years in ballet. So ballet was certainly outweighing music. But my mother, she told me this one wise phrase. She said, I beg you, don't stop playing piano. You don't need to practice 4 or 5 hours a day. You're not contemplating becoming a concert pianist, but play 1.5 hours a day, just enough to keep your fingers going, just enough to have not the progress, but just to keep the level. So because one day when you will grow, you will experience feelings, be they happy or sad ones, but so strong that words won't be enough to express. And then you will be able to sit at the piano and play your heart out. And little did you know that because of this advice, which I followed with like a not so nice face back then, because I was a ballerina back in the time. But I followed, and I don't regret, because as soon as I graduated from school and I started having much more free time on my hands, because, there was no mathematics and no history to do. There was your class, you go to the opera house for your job, you do your class. There's the daily class, 1.5 hours of class. It's like, amen. Everyone does the same. It's a sequence of rigorous exercises which are tailored to not only warm up your body, but also to keep and hopefully to increase your technical capacity. And then you have your daily rehearsals, and the amount of them always varies according to what you dance and how many shows there are and what roles you are casted for. So sometimes you might work from 10 till 6 straight, but sometimes you might have you have a class and then you have a little break because someone else is rehearsing, then you rehearse and then you have again a break. So it varies. And then on most of the days, then you have also a performance in the evening. So, but you suddenly have these gaps. So I didn't, being 18, living alone without my family in another city. Back in the time, I still lived in Estonia, but I lived away from my family. I lived in the capital. So I was most of the time feeling lonely, and I didn't know what to do because, you did not yet connect socially. You did not grow into a grown-up world, so you don't know what to do. So I picked up piano, and there were lots of pianos in the opera house. There was always a room free with a piano, so I ended up practicing. So I went back from 1.5 hours, which I could do during school years, I went back to my 4 hours a day. So I started practicing it a lot. 1 hour here, 45 minutes there, before the show, after the show, and it would come to a good chunk of time a day. And I realized that I forget about the time when I play music. And I was never planning to be a concert pianist. No, I always knew I don't want that. But then someone advised me, why don't you think about ballet conducting? We know you know what the music is about, so why don't you sing? And I first thought that no, this is impossible, because conductors are gods. For dancers, conductors are gods. Like you don't approach conductor, you don't complain to conductor. If there is a principal star dancer who is having difficulties arranging his or her steps in the music, they might interrupt their solo in the middle of the music, like raise the hand on stage to say sorry, and then very dramatic thing happens. Conductor, stops the orchestra, and all these 95 people, they stop playing. It's considered a huge thing. Like, you don't stop the orchestra. Conductor might stop the orchestra, but from the stage, you just don't stop the orchestra. That's the rule. So, when I was advised to become one of these gods, I said, no. No, swan, like I'm a swan, a willy or fairy or whoever. No, conducting. But the seed was planted, and I won't go through all the phases. There were lots of lucky encounters and little moments, signs, probably something, like I would say, like little pebbles, which would lead me through the mud of uncertainty, I would say. You just don't know where to go, but suddenly you see a little pebble there and you step on it. Someone would always give me an advice or give me a hand or show me something and guide. And it took me some years to figure out how to get certain training while being a dancer, because I had to support myself, and I could not just drop a ballet career and then go to the music academy and start life from beginning on. I somehow tried to sit on two chairs at the same time. And then so I found certain ways to study, because there is a lot of theoretical studies. It's not just playing the piano. There are lots of subjects which one needs to learn in order to be able to interpret the score as a conductor. So I needed to find ways to get acquainted with that. And only when I knew that I understood everything that's written in the score, I started contemplating about how to actually study conducting. But I was always very little worried about conducting itself, because I thought, I already learned how to manage my body. So I knew that the conducting technique itself, I would learn. But then by the time when I actually came to the phase of learning the ballet, the orchestra conducting technique, my son was born. So and as I'm a single mother, I knew that leaving ballet, because I was contemplating, maybe stopping with ballet, doing 3+2, undergrad and grad, in music, and then start a new career. Then my son was born, and stopping was out of question. I needed to support him, and I could not go to live in a dorm and on a campus somewhere. No, and have wealthy parents who would be able to support me or hire him a nanny or stuff like this. So okay, brace yourself, Maria, you have to pull it through somehow. Then again, I had lots of lucky encounters. There were some people who helped me, some people who believed in me. Looking back, I just think that probably I was meant to do it. I think that this is my calling, not the ballet. Ballet was a passion, but the music is really, I feel that it's my calling. It makes me happy. And then I somehow managed to do seemingly impossible. But because I was lucky, someone up there helped me to manage. So, yes, I have now retired from ballet 1.5 years ago. And the decision to actually really stop the ballet and tell myself that, okay, music is taking over, and in order to do music better, I need to stop sitting on the chairs like we say in Russian, like your arse might rip if you sit onto a chair. So I decided to shift onto one chair and say thank you very much, ballet career. I have danced professionally for 15 years. 15 years out of 20. It's a good accomplishment.
Oh my God.
I think it's good accomplishment. And I thought, okay, fine. And I sort of retired into nowhere. I would say at that moment into nowhere. I knew it would be freelancing. I was very fearful, but I knew that I want to become a better conductor, and that requires time. And then, I think life thought and destiny thought that I made the right decision, because 1 week after my final performance, I received my contract for the National Ballet of Canada. So I think it was the right decision.
I love that you talked about the story between you and your mom, how she kind of talked to you about, just, practice enough to get through it and to remember, so that your fingers kind of remember what it's like to play, a song, but, don't spend so much time that you sacrifice your, training for ballet. And I felt like I've definitely heard something along those lines from my mom as well. Although I didn't have the second half of your story where you actually picked it back up and then, wanted to spend more time for yourself. But I guess I'm curious, did your mom have similar upbringings or similar background in music and dance as you? Was that why she thought, this is wonderful, I love it, and you should try it?
No, my mother has no musical upbringing at all. She is a dance teacher, but she is like a hobby dance teacher, In post-Soviet bloc, there are lots of so-called dance groups where kids go after school and they dance. They get to perform. They go to some festivals, but it's not a professional dance. It's not a ballet school where you say it's going to be my profession. I'm going to earn my living with that. Yeah. People can drop out whenever they want, but mostly they stick till the end of high school. So, but I started dancing there. It's just regular dancing. We did some little ballet training, but without exaggeration. So my mother she's a big ballet lover. I think she was dreaming to become a ballet dancer back in time, but for various reasons it didn't work. I mean, she'd never even enrolled in ballet school. So I think partially through her dream, we got into ballet school. It means we are 4 sisters and we all went through ballet school. My youngest sister is 19 years my junior, and she is graduating from ballet school this year.
Oh my God. Wow.
Actually, her graduation gala was canceled just now because
no.
So we are hoping that they will somehow reconsider and maybe give them an extra half year to graduate, maybe. But we have no idea. It's a big mess, but it's a big mess worldwide. So
yeah.
So we cannot complain, and say poor us. Everyone is in the same boat now. So my mother has zero connection with music, but I think she appreciates it, But I'm sure that this thing about music, she said that she dropped this phrase unknowingly, I would say. I think she just felt that it would be a pity to just let all these years of efforts go, because I was quite advanced in piano. If I did not go to ballet school, I could have easily become a professional pianist. It was going quite easily. But without knowing, she gave me this life-changing advice.
Wow. What was your friends and family's reaction when you told them that you are going to become a conductor?
Reaction back then and confession now, they are polar. Because back then it was like, oh yeah, great, go for it, But what I was saying actually by saying that, I'm going to be an orchestra conductor, translated into human language, it would mean I am going to fly to the moon without a spacesuit. I'm going to land on the moon, take my kids' shovel and shovel some probe from the moon and bring it back. And I will accomplish it all in Sputnik, in Sputnik from 1969. This is what I was saying, basically. Why? Because you remember how I talked about training in ballet?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same in music. It's equally time consuming in music.
That's right.
So one excludes another. I know many people who are gifted in both ballet and music, but at some point they all have to choose. Is it one or other? And in fact, when there was some interviews of mine coming out a couple of months ago, and I have had some people writing to me on Instagram, and they would ask for advice, like, what should I do, Maria? Look, I'm doing this, and girl shows that she's playing a cello in orchestra. And, obviously, if you play in orchestra, you need to be already fairly advanced. She said, but then I am also doing this. And then she sends a ballet photo where she looks absolutely gorgeous. And you see that in order to achieve what I see in a photo, you need to work very hard. And unfortunately, with being a performing musician, a player, you will have to at some point choose. It's not the conducting, which you can do a bit later. With being an orchestra player or a soloist, you need to start straight away and then don't drop it. I was not intending to perform on stage. Right. I did it as a ballet dancer. So, so going back to that, I basically said that I'm going on an impossible mission. And now looking back, I actually tell myself I have no idea how I have pulled it all off. I have no idea. But while being in it, I have never had even a glimpse of doubt. What I was doing, I was just going simply towards, not a dream. It would be too cheesy to say. It's much simpler than that. I was just going towards a happier world. I was going towards something what would make me genuinely happy. And that's why I never had even a glimpse of thought. I mean, are we talking about giving up social life? Yeah. There was no going out to bars or anything for 10 years. And with my kid especially, you go from work, you go home, pick up your kids from school or kindergarten, you go home, you occupy yourself with kid, and then kid goes to bed, and then you start studying your musical subjects, till 3 a.m.
Oh my God.
3, sometimes 3:30, 4, whatever needed, falling asleep, or on the table. It has happened, or using every single break for practice. I started violin as well in order to learn how strings work in the orchestra. So there was no such a thing as a rest. There was another theory of my mom that rest is not being on the sofa in a frog position, but rest is simply a change of activity. So this is what was happening for the past 10 years, but especially for the past 5 years. So now, because of this coronavirus, it's for the first time in a decade that I have free time. And I actually, I made a conscious choice of not now studying any score, just taking few weeks just to actually breathe out, and to allow myself to be tired. And to say I cannot. I still practice my violins, and I have my son. He plays violin. We practice every day. I teach him. We do all kinds of things, but there's no this deadline. I need to study this. I need to do this assignment. It's kind of just for pleasure. So it's good.
I see. You mentioned that you had a lot of people that believed in you when you were going through this, and can you tell me about those?
Well, now they all say, you know what, Maria? Well, I must confess you, I never thought you would make it. because I think people just saw this determination in my eyes back then and said, well, okay, well, if you're flying to the moon, well, you might as well. If you fail, you will certainly realize but we won't tell you that you're crazy, But now people say we have no idea how you pulled it through, and I also say I have no idea how it all happened. And it takes time for my family and for my friends to adjust my position in their system of coordinates. Because I was Maria the dancer, and now Maria the conductor, and conductor normally has this very high social status, which I don't think that I have. Now, I'm still the same person. And I see there are certain shifts which I see in my friendships. There are very few people who we sort of maintain the same level of interaction. Mm-hmm. But lots of people, they have sort of like shed away because of different area of interest, you know. Just as you said, you know, we are sorry that if we are going to ask some banal questions, I think people kind of fear that they will not be interesting in discussion, and which is not true. I can speak about anything, but of course I would love to have some people to share my musical passion with, and from my old circle of friends, there are not many people who can speak in depth about music, and it's because it's simply not their area of expertise. So there are certain shifts, and I have gone through a lot of lonely time during past 1.5 years, but it's okay, it's fine. It's a good time to sort out my life, because I'm leaving a huge chunk of my life behind. And I'm just sorting out what to take with and what not to take into new life. And it's working pretty well. And at some point I will have my new circle of friends or acquaintances, at least in the new field. And those very few good friends who I have had since years, they are, and they will stay.
I see.
That's wonderful. I think I really like how you said that you didn't feel like it was like a mission or a goal or anything. It was just something that brought you a little bit more happiness than, you know, something that you dedicated a lot of your time and your whole career already in. Tell us about the first time you ever tried to be a conductor. You know, like, was there like a first time before you even started, you know, your training to really fully become a professional conductor? The first time you tried doing it, what was it like? Did somebody kind of teach you?
Yes. First time I ever stood in front of an orchestra was during so-called conducting course. There are plenty of them, and I was given an advice to attend a particular one, which was welcoming not only advanced students but also absolute beginners. There was an absolutely marvelous teacher. He is actually a teacher of LA Phil chief conductor Gustavo Dudamel. If you are from San Francisco, you might have heard his name, maybe. I mean, he is a if you check out Los Angeles Philharmonic, his name will pop up. He's a rock star in a musical world. And he's from Venezuela, and his teacher, one of his teachers, was the teacher on that course. And I remember I came to this course, and I had studied several scores which we were supposed to study during the course. And, you know, of course, before that, I would always look into the musical scores of ballets. And I know the ballet music. I grew up with it. I know how it goes. I know how it develops. But when you touch some works by Beethoven or by Tchaikovsky, by these masters, you are in awe and you don't know how to approach them. So I was studying this course as well as I could. And I was just telling myself, Maria, how on earth are you going to go there? You are just a ballet dancer pretending to be a musician. You just don't know anything. And then, and one evening before my flight to United Kingdom, I was in Estonia with my family during the time. I remember I was sweating, cold sweat, and I told myself, I'm not going anywhere. I had this panic attack. I said, no, they're going to ridicule me out because I'm dancer. And people will say, come on, what? You are not even a proper musician. You don't know anything. And then I told myself, listen, you have already spent thousands for this course. You have already accommodation. You have the flights. You have studied. So why to ship out now? You just go there. And if you fail, at least you know that you failed. You have tried, but you will have tried. So you will know for sure that this is not something that you were mistaken, that this is not what you wanted or how you saw it. Because, you know, you will always think that neighbor's garden is greener. until you actually go there and see that, what is happening there. Maybe it's a fake grass, you don't know. So I boarded, I'm like half conscious. I boarded that plane, shaking. And then I arrived there and I saw that everyone built these amazing people there, like, okay, let's start, folks, like play this first chord like this. And I see that there, people actually don't know. Many people don't know how to even start the first an orchestra. It's called an upbeat, like you give an upbeat for them to start. And I was like, okay, fine, let's start. Let's try it. So I spent there 2 weeks. And, I didn't even have a baton. Baton is this stick the conductors are conducting with. Because for me, it was like a magic wand. And I didn't think that I was good enough, a musician enough to actually allow myself to spend $6.99 to buy a conductor sticks. I thought that at first I have to become a conductor and then I will get a baton.
Oh, my God.
So I was called to stand in front of this small orchestra in the chorus, and they said, okay, what do you want to go? And I was like, let's try, check out. I was trying to do something there with my arms, and the teacher said, like, excuse me, why don't you have a baton?
Oh, and my God.
I don't think that I deserve one. I think he thought that I'm crazy. So he said, why don't you go to the office? You can buy one baton for £12.99, and next time come with a baton. We will teach you to hold the baton. So it's started, and I have spent 2 weeks there, partially floating above the water, partially sinking, learning what I still had to learn. I mean, it's forever learning, but back then, I had my thoughts, but what I knew for sure that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I knew. I was enchanted. I was absolutely oblivious to any signs of hunger, tiredness, or whatever. I just was with my eyes like this, looking and taking every information from every teacher, every student, everything. And I returned from this course and I went straight back to ballet because we were starting our season. And I remember my friends, they came to me and said, so how was it? Conductor, for them it was funny. And I remember I looked at one of my friends who is like one of these very good friends. And I said, I don't know how long it will take me, but one thing I know for sure, I'm on my way out. I'm on my way out from ballet. It was a point of no return. I just knew that I'm starting my final descent in ballet. I mean, there were still, I still danced another 4 years, and there were still some of really good moments. But it somehow in the back of your head, you always know, your heart, it always knows. Your head might think some thoughts, but your heart somehow it always knows. Yeah. So yes. But I was still doubting. Until I was giving my first ever professional show in an opera house, where I had to go in front of an orchestra without having ever rehearsed an orchestra. But my teacher, because I already was having a mentor who was working with me, he was a music director in the opera house. So he sort of took me under his wing and he was training me regularly and in a very hard way, like no thing of holding baton, like profound way, professional way. And he entrusted me with one show, and it was, you go do it. But I had no chance to fail. So it was once in a lifetime opportunity. And I decided to take this opportunity. It was a very risky opportunity because, there are 2,500 spectators and dancers dancing on the stage. And there are 80 musicians sitting in the pit. It has to work out. They have to play together and in a way how it has to be. Everything depends on you, on conductor, everything in the show. So, but I went there and God, I was scared before the beginning. But the moment the music started, the moment I started the music, actually, I knew that I was the fish in the water. And that was actually the moment when I knew that, yes, this is it. There's nothing better for me in this life than that. And I knew there is still a long way to go and to develop and to learn. I will learn till I'm 80 or till 90, hopefully 103. But I knew that this is what was my calling. Yes.
And this experience you had, was it, when was it? Was it like 3 years ago?
So yes, 2020. 2018, 2 years ago exactly. April, end of April, 27th of April, 18.
Ah,
Yes.
okay, just 2 years ago. And this is, so you said that this is the first time that you conducted on your own.
I have conducted on my own, because most of conducting courses that I have done later, these advanced conducting courses, they would always have a concert at the end. So you always get to go in front of a public and to conduct a short piece, or a piece of a chunk of a symphony, or a movement of a certain big work, But to go alone and conduct a 3-act show, that was 2 years ago. And yeah. So it was not if I had not stood in front of an orchestra in conducting classes and in concerts, conducting concerts, I would not accept to go in front of the orchestra and conduct a show. But I knew what it was like to stand in front of an orchestra already, and with some bigger works as well. But to just go and start and finish the show, I did not do that. It was 2 years ago that I did it.
I see. So just to clarify, this is 2 years ago, and it was a 3-act show, and you didn't really have a chance to rehearse. You just went on.
Yes, because there was another conductor who did the remaining shows, and I was not supposed to get any shows at all. My position in the opera house was a cover conductor, so my job was to learn to be on standby. I had to learn the musical material, and in case if conductor has a, God bless, heart attack or a diarrhea, I have to shower into the orchestra pit and finish the show, But I was told by the direction that chances that you go into the orchestra pit to conduct a show equal 0,0. But because I tried not to lose my time, and I would go to the rehearsal studios during rehearsals and run-throughs of the ballet. Run-through means when whole company comes together and does the entire piece from beginning to the end. It's called the run-through. And because experienced conductors, they very often don't come to this kind of rehearsals. They don't need it. But I was standing next to the pianist and always conduct, because I was training. So I would learn to look at the dancers and give them the exact tempo and the exact music they need. And I was learning to connect pieces of the show and to maintain the concentration during 3 hours. So I think the ballet administration was very happy with how I was doing. So the ballet director came to music director and said, like, what do you think if we gave Maria one show? And the music director said, well, I don't know. I have to ask her. So he called me and he said, would you like to conduct one show in 3 weeks? And I said I would be an idiot to say no, because he said, well, I knew that you will answer like this, so I will give your yes to the ballet administration. So this is how I was given a show. So after we have said goodbye on the phone with music director, I started practicing. So I started imagining that I have an orchestra in front of me, and I would run the ballet at least once a day for 3 weeks. I have done 25 run-throughs in my head.
Wow.
I mean, not in my head. I was saying in my head, but I would conduct, imagining, because different instruments, they sit in different places. So sometimes you need to, to look at the person who needs to start playing here and there, because sometimes people sit for longer periods of time not playing. So you need to help to lead them in. You have certain technique, so, and in order to do it all right, you have to practice. So I knew that I would not have any rehearsals. I would just go in front of the orchestra and play, and it would have to work from the first time. So I was practicing, and luckily it went without a single mistake, that show. I conducted it more or less from memory. Well, I had learned it so well.
Wow.
this has sort of earned me trust, because then the year after, I still stayed as a cover conductor in the same opera house in Germany, in Stuttgart. And they already told me, okay, you will have these 2 shows of this one very hard show, production. So I did that. And then through Stuttgart, someone heard about me in Canada, and so it started.
Wow, that's amazing.
Amazing.
That's really brave to conduct. I mean, just hearing your story, I think that was a really brave move on your end, but also you worked really, really hard for it.
But I just know that, I'm sure every person has had at least once a situation when you know that this an offer like this or an opportunity like this will not come.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm not ready for it yet, but there is no way I'm letting it go, because it's literally once in a lifetime, and you just know. And for me, that offer of that show was a gateway into this profession, because I knew if I will fail or if I will not fail, and there was no option for me to fail. It has to be it had to be perfect. That's it. But I knew that it will instantly raise my credibility in eyes of people who are in charge of hiring conductors on a different level. Because one thing is you say, oh, I'm a ballerina, But if you say, I have this position in an opera house and I have conducted a show and it went well and the world is small, rumors spread, people can call, like the music director in Canada. He told me, he said, before hiring me, because he has hired me for this big contract without having ever seen me live. We have had several job interviews on Skype, but he did not really see me in action. And he gave me a lot of jobs straight away. And he told me when I arrived there for the first time, he said, I have checked every whisper about you that I could. And I have not heard a single bad word about you, about your professionalism. So these kind of situations, like the one I described before, they were my way of gaining professional portfolio, because I did not attend music academy. I have done certain courses, I have certain certificates, but I did not have undergrad in music. I'm actually going to start, hopefully, next scholastic year. I will start postgrad in music. So this will be fine. I'm already having jobs. I'm earning my living with that, but I will have a formal training completed. I'm doing it in the reversed way. But I had a different way of getting into the profession, and that's why I had no chance granted to fail, to make a mistake, because this was my entrance. This was my exam. This was my music academy exam, state exam. That's a very unusual one, but yeah, this is how it was.
That's an amazing story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I think you really highlighted, the hard work that you put into it along the way, right? It's not that, you were notified that you wouldn't be given this chance, and then now you go and practice and learn. You were already putting in all of the hard work to get yourself ready, preparing for whatever chance that may come your way. And then there was that one. And then you, though maybe were really scared, but, stood up and, step up and say, yes, I am, I'm doing it. And I think it's just really a wonderful example to tell people that, whatever it is that you might want to do with your life, maybe it sounds like it's impossible and mission impossible for everyone in your family and, all of your friends. As long as you're willing to put in the hard work and then, not be afraid and not get kind of talked out of it by your own self-doubt, you can definitely still get to where you want to be. That's amazing.
And plus, it's as simple as that. If you are lucky enough to find your calling, no effort is perceived as effort. Because we always talk about the sacrifices we have to make,
Yeah.
I had to sacrifice. I had so much effort. But if you are lucky enough to find something which is really what drives you, what makes you happy, nothing is an effort. You don't care. You don't count hours. You don't count. It just, as you just walk towards the light, which calls you. And I wish to everyone in this world to find their calling, because I think we are very often stuck with someone else's dreams, someone else's ambitions. Or, I'm doing this course because there's this lovely initiative from Ivy League universities. They offer free courses online, so I'm taking this science of well-being from Yale. And the lovely lady, the professor there, she says, we are so often mistaking things. So we think that something will make us happy, but actually it doesn't. And there are ways of finding what makes you happy, but we never give ourselves time to actually dive into our inner self and actually hear this little ringing voice in there, which is like, yeah, I don't want to be dentist. I don't want to be heart surgeon and earn 300,000 grand. I want to be an artist and exhibit in a gallery over the street, and it will make me happy. And actually, last year when I was waiting for my contract in Canada to start last season, I'm talking about 18-19. Because we work in seasons, we don't work in astronomical years. So our season starts like roughly from September and goes roughly till end of June, the beginning of July. So we work in seasons, just like scholar years. And last season was my transition year. I stopped with one career, and then I had this time I had to wait 7 months. So I was having an unemployment in my country here. So I suddenly had become very poor, because my salary was about 50% higher than the money I was allowed last year. So there was no way of going shopping, minimum things of if my son needed new underwears or shoes, because he keeps growing. But, there was no such thing as shopping. There was shopping for food, and that was it. Rent and shopping for food. But, the funny thing was that not a single time I felt during last year that I was deprived of anything. Meanwhile, when I was in ballet, because things were getting more complicated and more frustrating towards the end of my career, I always felt this need to console myself, to go and buy something or to buy something for someone else. But always there was this need to go and distract yourself by spending money. And last year I was poor, but I was telling everyone, I said, I'm so happy. I don't feel the urge to go to the store, because I wake up and I'm genuinely happy because I have music in my head, the sun is shining, and I don't want anything but just to smile, And this is how I realized again that it is very important to find what really makes you happy, because then as long as you have your basic needs covered, you don't need much. Because
That's
what
a
you
wonderful
have
point.
inside is so much more fulfilling.
That's
I
a
hope you
wonderful
agree
point.
with me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I want to say we've definitely talked to people who said in the past that, they realize that, perhaps for them to, get the experience or the training required for what they want to do next, it looks like they have to cut out a lot more. Maybe they need to not socialize. Maybe they need to stop spending money on certain things. But then when you really look at what's required and what's essential to you, what really makes you happy, then actually those are really not sacrifices. And it's exactly what you're saying, right? You feel like, oh, I don't need to have those things to be happy, because, maybe focusing on music actually makes me a lot more happier than getting a new dress or going out to get drinks with my friends. Yeah, I think that's exactly what you're saying. I think it's so nice that you mentioned that, along the way, even though that the two very amazing careers that you've chosen so far, they both require really significant, just a lot of time dedicated fully, like you said, physically and mentally, and then also like your soul into it to be good at it. And then you also mentioned that there's, a few lucky encounters and then people that gave you the chances that helped you along the way. What do you think that, how did you attract all of those lucky encounters and the networks and the opportunities that kind of just showed up at a time that was absolutely necessary for you to pivot into your current career?
I very much believe in science, not science, but science and chances. very much believe, and I believe that the closer you are to your true self, the more universe helps you to get there. Because, we all speak about God and, Almighty, whatever, you name it, whatever. But there's definitely something that rules it, that keeps it all somehow going. And I come from Orthodox Church, and Orthodox Church is very strict, they say you go to hell if you don't do this, God will punish you, go and confess, you have to have 6 weeks of not eating meat, bread, and whatever, go and starve yourself, And then I went through all kinds of phases of believing, not believing, contemplating, questioning, doubting. And then at some point I realized, that, and also I like to meditate whenever I have time. And I have come to conclusion that this thing out there, the energy, call it whatever, it wants us nothing else, but just to be happy. But for that, in order to be guided, because you need to find what your purpose was to come. And I don't say, mind you, I'm not trying to say that, I'm the wise one to have found. I think I'm the lucky one to have been granted a chance to find. What makes me really happy. And how I know that it makes me happy, because I stopped hating myself. I started accepting myself as I am. If I make mistakes, I don't blame myself like it was in ballet, I just go and massacre myself, if I did a mistake, someone told me stretch your knee, and I'll be, how didn't I stretch my knee? Or, one page, go and kill yourself. What a nightmare. But now, I feel that, okay, it's just a regular process of learning. Okay, mistake. Okay, fine. I'll fix it. No problem. We'll move on. Nothing really stresses me out. Nothing makes me bitter and unsure. Sure, but in a good way. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So, and I think because I was lucky enough to find what makes me myself, I think some gates opened and opportunities started pouring in. Because in order to learn to draw or to count, you can give to your kid to draw this picture which goes by numbers, And then it's the same. They say with us, grown-ups, if you need if you know where you want to get, life, universe, almighty, whatever it is, will provide you with these little numbers, which will be just, you are standing on one number, but then one will be visible. The next one will be somewhere visible, so you will know your next step. You don't know where else it will lead, but you will just, you will have your next a landmark, or is it called a landmark, I think, in English? Yeah. So somehow you will always be guided without really knowing it, without really feeling it. Just when you will have reached some of destination, you will be able to turn back and say, like nothing was by chance. It was by chance, but not really. But for that, you have to trust your heart. You have to really trust your heart, even when you think that, God, but how will I provide? How will I provide? When I knew I had to stop, my son was 4 at that time. I thought, how will I provide? But then you have to just trust somehow. It will happen. It will happen. It will happen, and you need to make this step, and then somehow things just work out for you. They will always will. I believe it blindly. Life wants nothing, or universe wants nothing else for us but our happiness. Nothing. And the reason why we are not happy is because we have not yet found ourselves. And this is also what I'm learning now in this Yale course. They say, we always think that if I will have a iPhone 12, 13, 17, XA, YZP with 3 cameras, and it will be 5, and then at some point this whole backside will be the whole camera, If I'll have that, and then I'll drive Tesla, or even better, a helicopter, I'll be happy, No, you won't. Because if deep inside you're not happy, nothing will make you happy. If tooth is rotten inside, you can put whatever you want on top. You can color it. It will still be rotten inside.
You have so many good quotes. I don't even know how to. That's so amazing.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I feel like this entire recording is a wonderful quote.
I know. Yeah. Thank you. So I want to know. So if somebody comes to you and they tell you that I want to become a conductor, what would you tell them to do?
I would honestly say what it takes. Because you cannot deny the earthly meaning. Yeah, it's a profession. I would say what it takes. I would say the basic list of requirements, and I would say go for it. And I would say, here's my number. You can reach out to me anytime.
That's wonderful.
That's what I would say. And in fact, there was one dancer who reached out to me and he said, "Oh yeah, I would maybe be interested, you know." And I think it was very cute because I think he just thought that I go in front of an orchestra and I wave my hands. But to wave our hands is very easy for us, you know, because we can do whatever we want with our hands. It will always be looking nice, but it has to work. It has to have a meaning. So I said, "Oh, okay." Well, he said, "I would like to have a chat with you." I said, "No problem. Let's chat. When can we call each other?" And he said, "Well, but just before we chat, I would like to know. So, how long did you study? What do you need? What does one need?" And I said, "Well, what instrument do you play?" He said, "Well, I don't play anything." And I said, "Well, then you need to start playing an instrument. You know, it will take you a couple of years before you will be able to at least a little bit understand, because and most it will be piano because you need to read the orchestra score eventually." And then I gave a list of things what one needs to learn, list of subjects. Wow. And I said, "Well, when you will have kind of be done with them, of course you will also be learning, then you can proceed to the easy part. The way I said, so, but if you're starting from zero, it will take at least 8 years. My luck was that back then I was not starting from zero, and you know, he evaporated. He never responded to my message. He never got back to me, and I think he just really thought that, you know, one can just go and wave hands, because basically this is what it looks from the side. But I know that also many people think that dance is the same, you know, like go and fly. And it is
hard.
Happens. It's hard. It's
very hard.
A killer. Yes. But I really hope that my example will pave a way for some people who might have been doubting but didn't have as much courage as I happened to have. There's one very famous American ballerina, Cynthia Harvey. She's from a couple of generations before me, and I have been lucky to study with her, and she was always very supportive of my aspirations to become a conductor. And she said, when I started to really making it, she wrote to me, she said, "You cannot imagine how happy I am for you, because by succeeding, you sort of fulfill my dream as well." She said, "I was working at the ABT, which is in Lincoln Center in New York City." And she said, you know, she was a principal dancer. And she said, I was always dreaming to become a conductor. And I was having much better conditions to study it than even you. Because conductors were actually almost insisting on training me. They said, "We will train you. Like, no problem. Just come and do it, you know. No so much efforts needed. We will teach you everything." She said, "But I didn't dare." She said, "And I'm so happy that you have dared and that you're making, because it makes my dream come true through you." And I just hope that if there are some other people who might have doubted, that they will also follow.
That's amazing. I think that's what we're trying to do. Hopefully we can reach a lot of people.
I think it's valid for any field.
Where can people find you if they have questions for you?
I have a website.
Great.
I have a Facebook page.
Perfect.
I will link them.
Facebook page. I have an Instagram page. All has my name inside. So if you Google my name and family name, it will all pop up. I'm pretty connected. I like when people write to me. I really like. It feels so cute when people write to me. So I normally respond very quickly. If they feel like it, please.
Thank you so much for your time today. It has been so inspirational to talk to you. And I really, really liked how passionate you are. And I think it's a real proof that, with passion and with hard work, you can get to where you want to go. And it's also really, really rare, I think, for me to just get to talk to somebody who is so, maybe because you're coming from a ballet dancer background and you just work so many hours, but it's very rare for me to hear that some people work from 8 or 6 in the morning to 10 p.m. and then they go back and do the same thing, or even to 3 a.m. like you were saying. So I think it's a really good example. This really shows that you really have to work this hard to go for the things you really want, but it is really worth it, right, in the end.
Yeah, but it is, I must admit, it is also partially my ballet upbringing as well. We are, our normal workload is, as I have learned, is something impossible for other people. I have this story I always tell people. I have a friend, she was a dancer and she was dancing in Vienna. And she was one of these very small scene dancers, beautiful like elf, like a fairy. And at some point she said, I'm done with ballet and I have to figure out what to do in life. And she went to study medicine. And then, and then she said at some point that, how they have to first, I'm not very sure about exact amount of years, but first they need to study, I think, general medicine. And then after a certain amount of years, they need to choose their specification. They need to choose the direction. And as much as I understand, one can choose 1, maximum 2 specifications because, it's an in-depth study, for obvious reasons. And then I remember she was telling me, I'm sitting here and I have these four fields I'm interested in and I cannot make up my mind. I think I will apply for all 4.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken, she was accepted into all 4. And
what?
She graduated in all 4. If I'm not mistaken, cum laude in all 4 fields. She works now in a medical clinic in Switzerland, But what I'm talking about is that we are given this resilience. We are because what is asked from us during starting from very early years, the first thing what teacher will tell you when you will come to the dance class, she'll be like, you are 4, you have this belly and you have this too, and you have there was 2 ponytails, and teacher said, and you want to fly around and scream with other kids, and teacher says, well, welcome to the dance class, little ones. So from now on, I will be the only one who will be talking in this class. And what you will be doing, you will be paying attention. You will be paying attention. So what is being taught to you is to listen, to obey, to no corrections of every person, given to any person in the hall. You have to know everything. And then scan yourself to apply corrections from other people. So it's an immense focus and discipline, immense. And I realize it. We don't think that it's anything special because it's normality in our field. It's normality. But when I started coming out of that field, I realized that I have an enormous advantage.
Yeah.
I think this is how I have pulled certain amount of studies through without actually attending an institution, because I knew that I will be disciplined enough to study everything that's being taught by other students, spoon-fed to other people.
Yeah.
And so when you're obliged to sit in course in person, you're more likely to complete the course. If you need to do it at home at night when you're tired, or you want to binge watch Friends, or you have blisters on your feet from the show, or whatever, or your child is vomiting at night, I really knew that I will do it. Child vomits, so you clean the vomit and you go and study. But it's a ballet advantage. And I do acknowledge it. I do acknowledge it. So, if you ever hear someone who says, my child wants to go to ballet, but ballet is not a profession, should I send my kid to ballet school? I would definitely say yes. Because if child wants to be ballet dancer, and then later he will need to, or he wants to dance, and actually eventually becomes professional dancer, not a problem. It's not a very big money, but it's a big passion and great discipline. And then there will be no problem to switch into another field. Absolutely everyone from my friends and from my old circle of friends who have made a conscious career change, and they have, I have dancers turned engineers, doctors and stuff like this. They have all succeeded at a very high level because of the focus we have.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for taking interest in my story. I very much appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Good night.
Yes. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. You just finished listening to an episode of the Work in Progress podcast. If you like this episode, make sure you share this with someone who can benefit from it and leave us a review on iTunes. Don't forget to let us know what you think or if you have any questions. You can find our contact information in the episode description. Keep doing the good work, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.